You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. Nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 16th of July. 4 men charged with sex offences and abduction of 13-year-old girl. Rio Ferdinand's chalk eyes Twitter. Anti-white advertisements flood London before Olympics. Spain still appealing to Germany for funds. Icelanders are fighting not to join the Eurozone. University of Minnesota forced to cut ties with unfair campaign in Duluth. Thought for the day, women and Islam. UK news. It has been reported that 4 men, 3 from London and 1 from Ipswich, have been charged with sex offences and other offences relating to the abduction of a 13-year-old girl. The men are due to appear before magistrates in Ipswich, accused of crimes against the same teenage girl, Suffolk police said. Mohammed Sheikh, 31, of Seaton Point, Hackney, East London, is charged with a child abduction offence and possession of a controlled drug. Surinuddin, 28, from St Matthew's Road, Tower Hamlets, London, is charged with 2 counts of rape against a girl under the age of 16 and 1 child abduction offence. Ali Hamza, 38, from Chingford Road, East London, has been charged with sexual assault and a child abduction offence. Abdul Hamid, 46, from Wellington Street, Ipswich, has been charged with 2 counts of rape against a girl under the age of 16 and 1 child abduction offence. Footballer Rio Ferdinand is defending himself over a tweet he put on Twitter calling Ashley Cole a chalk eyes. The term chalk eyes apparently refers to a person as being black on the outside and white on the inside, so Rio Ferdinand claims it was not a racist term. Ashley Cole has said he will not be making any complaints about the comments. A World at 8 reporter commented, "Thank God, I should think we're all sick and tired of these overpaid and undereducated children." Reports of anti-white racism are sparking off in London when newsagent shops were found to have advertisements in their shop windows which breached the race laws. The advertisements are for the letting of flats and other properties. One advertisement says Asians only and another Bangladeshi or Indian only. A house was for rent for Asian families only. A British National Party spokesperson said all British nationalists are now urged to clog up the phone lines and report anti-white racism to the police. We need as many of these crimes logged for the Freedom of Information Act records. A World at 8 reporter commented, "This is very similar to jobs appearing as only Polish-speaking need apply and all the jobs in the fast food industries and takeaways going to their own ethnicities. It flagrantly flouts any race laws we do have in place in the UK because of course the ethnic majorities always employ their own, often illegal, people. It only proves the nationalist point. These people do not want to integrate, they want to make money and take over, not take away. It will be interesting to see if any of the London councils actually do anything about it. What would happen if properties were advertised for English people only, and jobs likewise, instead of the all-encompassing British? We would see some movement there, wouldn't we?" Euronews. German leader Angela Merkel has said that the German lawmakers shouldn't have a problem bailing out the Spanish banks. Austerity measures for the Spanish people are on the horizon, however, and this time jobless people will be hit in the new round of measures. Unemployment benefits are to be cut, which will spark massive demonstrations by the Spanish, which could lead to rioting and looting. German stocks rose again this week, showing the rest of Europe who really benefits from being in the Eurozone, and it isn't Spain, Britain, Italy or Greece. Although things are tough for the Spanish people, their ridiculous government is doing what we did pre-recession, and that is pouring money into an Olympic 2020 bid. They say speculate to accumulate, but this takes it to a new height of stupid. In spite of the Eurozone crisis, the EU's negotiations with potential accession countries continue. A report on the prospects for accession for Iceland are finding that 3 years after the accession talks began, the majority of Icelanders are not in favour of joining the EU. Disputes over the economic, agricultural and fisheries policies present significant challenges to the negotiations and may yet fuel opposition parties' calls for a referendum on Iceland's accession. However, public support for EU accession remains low, with a majority of 53.8% of the population against joining the EU and only 27.5% in favour. World News. The divisive and alienating Unfair campaign, which was adopted by the University of Minnesota Duluth, has failed. Much of the credit belongs to Campus Reform, the first outlet to break the story concerning the university's partnership with the Unfair campaign in June. The university has indefinitely suspended its membership in the controversial Unfair campaign, pending a change in the group's emphasis and creative approach, the school announced in a press release this week. This ridiculous campaign has angered many white and black Americans. It says that if you are white, you automatically think like a racist and do not have to worry about being black. Duluth is being attacked by the Marxists because it is one of America's mostly white areas left in the entire country. Over $4,000 has been spent by the university in Duluth on this campaign. One of the replies posted online was from a black youth. He says, "Well, I'm not white and I don't ever have a problem. Why? Because I don't dress like a thug. My parents taught me to speak proper English. I don't project an attitude and come across like everybody owes me something. I go to church, don't do drugs and don't have tats all over my body. At least 90% of all the problems would be solved if we didn't set our cultural standards at the lowest common denominator. When you're taught that being a pimp is something to aspire to, you know your culture has problems. The only people that have tried to enslave me are white liberals pushing welfare and a less than mentality on my family. Yes, my view isn't popular, but it's better than going through life thinking that everyone is out to get you. A lesson for our young blacks, I feel. Unfair campaigners feature posters of white faces with writing over them. For example, it is hard to see racism when you are white. Thought for the day: women and Islam. Women and Islam is the subject of today's thought. The two really do not go together. Even though Muslim women appear to do their duty and produce masses of offspring and obey their husbands, it does not seem to affect the way Islam itself views women and their rights. In short, they do not have any at all in any country they migrate or settle in. They, being Muslim, are above the laws of these countries, but are also out of the protection zones some of the laws of the land provide. One of the latest headlines is of a sordid trade in summer brides, as they are called. Wealthy tourists from the Persian Gulf are paying to marry underage Egyptian girls just for the summer, according to a report. The young victims face sexual slavery when still married, and as these marriages are not legally binding when they return home, often pregnant, they are disgraced in Muslim society. When the arrangement ends, the men return to their homes in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. These sex tourists pay a dowry to the girls' families, who are more than often living in poverty, of between £320 and £3,200. Most of the victims are under 18 and some very much younger. The case of Aziza, whose family lived near Giza in Egypt. She was 17 when she was bought for £2,120 by a rich Saudi aged 45. She was groomed and told she would return with him to Saudi. This never happened. She was left alone and pregnant to return to her family with the child. Now this, along with a passage from the Quran, illustrates the status or lack of it for female children and women in general. The text tells us, in fact, that as long as a female is paid for, she becomes that man's property, to do with as he thinks fit. There is no way this message is not clear. If it was in another book and not a religious manuscript, it would be titled Slavery for Idiots. Apparently, no foreigner can marry an Egyptian girl if there is an age difference of 10 years, according to state laws. But parents and marriage brokers are getting around the restriction. They will forge birth certificates to make the girls appear older and the men younger. In 2009, a court in Alexandria jailed 2 registrars for conducting temporary marriages of hundreds of girls under 18. Of course, all this is between Muslim men from whatever country is irrelevant. It proves a point. If a Muslim thinks he has bought a female, she is his property, and this explains why we have a real growing problem with Muslim grooming in this country with our own female children. The prime groomers literally buy these children with gifts and alcohol, and in the last stages hard drugs. So in Muslim eyes, these children are no longer English, Hindu, Sikh or black girls. They are just chattels, and they, or the Muslim community, see no wrong in what they are doing. Of course they know it is wrong to rape and pimp out children from other religious communities, but as long as the girls start off as willing and accept their groomers' gifts, the average Muslim groomer sees them only as slaves are endemic in the Muslim culture. In England, the problem is becoming national, and at last some of the authorities are attempting to do something about it, albeit without upsetting the Muslim communities, who in my book deserve to be very, very upset about it. Back to the sex slaves of Egypt, where many of these dumped brides are also targeted by Egyptian men and forced into prostitution. Even the ones who go off with their owner are set to work in the man's house as slaves. The prospect for these children of Egypt's poor is not good. Now there is a fundamentalist Islamic government in power, their problems will only grow worse. The Islamic government is actually considering 2 more laws that concern women. They are unbelievably one that would legalise the marriage of girls starting from the age of 14 and the other that permits a husband to have sex with his dead wife within 6 hours following her death. The European continent doesn't seem to suffer as much from the Muslim grooming as we do in our country. The reason for this is simple. On the continent the family group is not as segmented as it is in the UK. Families stick together more because countries in Europe have a history with Islam and domination and 2 world wars plus other intrusions like communism, so therefore the family unit has had to remain strong. Their female children are better protected than ours. Our female children, despite all the hollering about paedophiles, are subjected to early sexualisation in our schools. It's all right, isn't it? Drink and boys. Our girls, for the most part, do not listen or respect their parents if they're lucky to have 2 of them. The social engineering of our children, their education and even their hobbies, mobile phones, computers and having a right good laugh, flout a gentler upbringing in the face. It also has and does lead to sexual groomers having a wide open invitation. Nothing appeals to these youngsters more than having a good looking young Muslim guy who has a car and probably the use of many houses for many girls. In lots of cases these girls are lacking a father figure, some are very vulnerable in care and all need reassurance from anyone that they are loved. It is so sad that we at ProFam can see so many ruined lives. Both the girls and their relations have had their futures ruined. For what? To be a sex slave and nothing more. The Muslim religion does no favours for women, so what is the attraction for the many young girls who willingly convert? Could it be that for some the attraction lies in the supposed order of the life? Muslim family ties are very strong, as many a poor Muslim girl has known to her cost, but that would appeal to a non-Muslim girl, to whom order and knowing her place would be an attraction. Her children would be looked after, her husband or someone would provide for her, and the mere fact she would not have to work or be seen out in some cases would also hold appeal. I can understand why the opposing pictures of East and West are contentious. The Western girl is seen as promiscuous, drunk, not a fit mother for children, no standards of behaviour, no family bonds, rude and forward. The Muslim girls are seen as objects of marriage, dowries or businesses, good mothers and obedient. Islam welcomes the non-Muslim girls and gives them different standards and order. Often it is too late by the time some do see the light after conversion. They are prisoners, their children will always belong to his family and Allah, and they will be treated by their husbands as a Muslim wife, not a Western wife. We are not talking about sexual grooming here. The non-Muslim girls subject to that are caught at an early age, well before they form their own lives, and they are not subjects for conversion to Islam. They are viewed as every hole is a goal, as one Muslim said on a Channel 4 programme last year. So we see double standards applied to women in Islam and outside it. Young girls from poor Muslim homes are bought and sold from Muslims outside that country and counted as slaves. Young non-Muslim girls are groomed and bought and treated as sex slaves for that and other male family members. Some older girls are attracted by the order of Islam and convert and marry into it. Many try to leave, but they are, according to the Quran, their husband's property, again a form of slavery. We must see a concerted effort in the UK to stop slavery, to stop the misery and to see Islam for what it really is, a tool for the unstable and unhappy to cling to, instead of the actuality of the pernicious and ever-growing cancer that is enveloping our society and our country. And finally, a Thai care worker has been jailed for killing her English pensioner lover, Paul Norfolk. She beat him to death with a hammer as he slept. The killing took place in Suffolk just 3 months after he changed the name of the beneficiary of his will from his frail wife to that of Bonthui Rimmer. The will left her £340,000. She was married to his best friend who had recently passed away. Bonanthui had been brought to Britain and worked as a carer for the victim's wife Esme before she died. Bonanthui was given a life sentence by the judge. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne Mozar and I wish you all a very good night. Abduction offence. Abdul Hamid, 46, from Wellington Street, Ipswich, has been charged with 2 counts of rape against a girl under the age of 16 and 1 child abduction offence. Footballer Rio Ferdinand is defending himself over a tweet he put on Twitter calling Ashley Cole a chock-eyes. The term chalk ice apparently refers to a person as being black on the outside and white on the inside, so Rio Ferdinand claims it was not a racist term. Ashley Cole has said he will not be making any complaints about the comment. Anti-white advertisements flood London before Olympics. Spain still appealing to Germany for funds. Icelanders are fighting not to join the Eurozone. University of Minnesota forced to cut ties with unfair campaign in Duluth. Thought for the day: women and Islam. UK News. It has been reported that 4 men, 3 from London and 1 from Ipswich, have been charged with sex offences and other offences relating to the abduction of a 13-year-old girl. The men are due to appear before. A World Today reporter commented, "Thank God, I should think we're all sick and tired of these overpaid and undereducated children." Reports of anti-white racism are sparking off in London when newsagent shops were found to have advertisements in their shop windows which breached the race laws. The advertisements are for the letting of flats and other properties. One advertisement says Asians only and another Bangladeshi or Indian only. A house was for rent for Asian families.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozar. The World at 8, the #1 in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 16th of July. 4 men charged with sex offences and abduction of a 13-year-old girl. Rio Ferdinand's chalk eyes Twitter magistrates in Ipswich accused of crimes against the same teenage girl, Suffolk police said. Mohammed Sheikh, 31, of Seaton Point, Hackney, East London, is charged with a child abduction offence and possession of a controlled drug. Surinuddin, 28, from St Matthew's Road, Tower Hamlets, London, is charged with 2 counts of rape against a girl under the age of 16 and 1 child abduction offence. Ali Hamza, 38, from Chingford Road, East London, has been charged with sexual assault and a child abduction.